Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahushai, Bayishim, Barakah Kodash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bayishim, Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule and teach well. And peace and salutations to Ya'akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the Brother Raya with another video, and I'm going to start it off with this article from RT.com titled, Almost 240 People Injured, One Officer Killed in Beirut Protests Amid Clashes, Reports of Fire and Police Shooting. And this is just another indicator that we're living in the last seconds of these last days before the second coming of Yahushua HaMashiach, whom the world ignorantly refers to as so-called Jesus Christ. This is 2 Esdras chapter 9. I'm going to start at verse 1. He answered me then and said, Measure thou the time diligently in itself, which is what the men of the Lord, chiefly through GMS or Great Millstone, are doing by watching the news and reading the scriptures and filtering the news through the scriptures to see that these end times prophecies are taking place and coming to their fulfillment. And when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made and punish you people for your wickedness, you Edomites or so-called white people, for turning most of this planet into a giant trash can and afflicting the apple of the Most High's eye, the true children of Israel, who are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, you other heathen nations who have helped the Edomites in afflicting the children of Israel, and 2/3 of you Israelites who are hard-headed and refuse to return under your power, Yahweh Bayishim Yahushai. You want to be everything else under the sun but what you are, the true children of Israel. Even more death, misery, and destruction is coming to this entire planet before Yahushai makes his second coming. And when that happens, nuclear missiles are going to be shot to the ends of the earth. 200 million alone hitting the United States of America, which is biblically known as Babylon the Great, turning it into the biblical lake of fire from sea to shining sea, and then a desolate, uninhabitable wasteland afterwards. Here's the point in verse 3. Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes, which are happening damn near daily all across the planet, and in areas where earthquakes are not usually known to happen, and uproars of the people in the world, such as those protests going on in Beirut, Lebanon, and then not just Beirut, Lebanon, you've been having these George Floyd and Black Lives Matter protests going on in the U.S. You had things going on in Portland, in Aurora, Colorado. There's rioting and looting in Chicago, and then down in Austin, Texas during a protest, a protester was shot and killed. And it's only going to intensify, and even more people are going to die. Then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. For like as all that is made in the world hath a beginning and an end, and the end is manifest. And if you have that spiritual eye salve, you can clearly see that the end is manifesting right before you. So if you're a hopeful elect, the only thing you should be concerned with doing right now is having all 10 toes down in this truth, pushing this word as hard as you possibly can, and following the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bayishim Yahushai to the best of your abilities, so you can hope to have that protective hedge over you for when Jacob's trouble really pops off. Now let's get back to that article. Army has been deployed to Beirut downtown to quell protests over the deadly blast earlier this week. And even before that blast happened in Beirut, protests have been going on in Lebanon since 2019. And all throughout 2019, there were protests. You had the Yellow Vest protests in France, protests in Hong Kong, protests in Iraq, protests in Central and South America, etc., etc. At least 238 people were injured and 63 of them hospitalized, and police said an officer was killed in the clashes. Thousands of protesters gathered at Martyrs Square in central Beirut, attempting to reach the parliament and clashing with riot police. Demonstrators threw rocks and projectiles at the officers, who responded by employing tear gas and other special means. #Beirut protests. Media reports claim that law enforcement used rubber bullets and even live fire against the crowd. when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world. And hey, with what's been going on lately in the US, this doesn't look too different from some of the streets in the US with people protesting. Media reports claim that law enforcement used rubber bullets and even live fire against the crowd. Photos from the scene uploaded on social media showed numerous bloodied people with serious-looking injuries. One officer died from falling down an elevator shaft after being chased inside the building by rioters, a police spokesman said. Building goes on fire. Hashtag Beirut, hashtag protest. Eyewitnesses said fire has erupted at Martyrs Square amid the ongoing unrest. Economy and Environment Ministries building on fire.
عم نشوف هلا تم حرق وزارة البيئة ووزارة الاقتصاد. بعد المواجهات مع القوى الأمنية موجودة، بس فينا مثل ما عم يصل الأخبار وزارة الخارجية استحلوها، وزارة البيئة ووزارة الاقتصاد، وهي وزارة الاقتصاد يلي أضربوا فيها النار المتظاهرين.
The protesters stormed several government buildings in the city, breaching the Foreign Ministry, the Economy Ministry, and the Ministry of Water and Energy. The HQ of the country's Association of Banks was also attacked. The Lebanese army was deployed in Beirut later on Saturday to help police restore order. A military column of several Humvees with manned machine guns and SUVs packed with troops was filmed making its way through the city. Attention, the army is on its way towards protesters. Coming soon to the streets of America, there's news coming out now saying that people could be fined or jailed for not taking the coronavirus vaccine. And then you also had President Trump say that the military would powerfully help to administer the vaccine. Hey, something big is in the making. And also during that first lockdown of the coronavirus, you had military hardware like tanks and Humvees and MREPs get moved all throughout the country by train. And then I read somewhere that up with those protests and looting in Chicago, that the police couldn't handle the situation. So as the situation deteriorates more and more around the country, these food shortages get worse, more and more people are evicted from their houses and lose their jobs and begin to protest, they're going to need to bring out the big guns to keep people in check. And hey, it's not just going to be U.S. military personnel patrolling the streets. You're going to have NATO troops, Russian and Chinese troops, and paid mercenaries putting that work to you people, especially you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Videos on social media also showed soldiers who were armed with long sticks and assault rifles pushing and shoving the demonstrators. Lebanese army viciously beating protesters at Beirut's Ring Road, was trying to film it and got hit in the head. And fine, they tried to take my phone, no chance. Hey, in the US, you'll be lucky just to get hit in the head with a stick. A lot of you people are going to get gunned down in the streets like dogs. As the violence was ongoing, Lebanese Prime Minister Hassan Diab addressed the nation saying that he was going to request an early parliamentary election as the only way to resolve the crisis. And just the other day, this Prime Minister, Hassan Diab, said he was going to resign. And even before then, you had protesters calling for the heads of the people in the government of Lebanon. Here's an article from WashingtonPost.com. Resign or hang. Protesters in devastated Beirut turn fury on Lebanon's leaders. And this is all a part of biblical prophecy as well. This is 2 Esdras chapter 15. I'm going to read verse 14 through 16. Woe or destruction to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another. And this means a multitude of things: civil war, race war, and even people going against their government, which is what we're seeing in Beirut, as we just saw from that clip. You got the Lebanese army beating protesters. And one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands, bats, sticks, clubs, knives, Molotov cocktails, and in the United States of America, the gun. For there shall be sedition among men, and that word sedition means conduct or speech inciting people to rebel against a ruling authority or monarch, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. And your modern day kings and princes are these political figures, like your mayors, your governors, senators, prime ministers, presidents, etc., etc., and even the authorities that uphold the system, like the police and military. Again, they shall not regard their kings nor princes. Resign or hang. Protesters in devastated Beirut turn fury on Lebanon's leaders, their kings and princes. Protesters in Beirut occupied government ministries, set fires, and faced off against security forces Saturday in an outpouring of anger directed at Lebanon's leaders following the huge blast that ripped through the city earlier this week. As the battle raged, Lebanese Prime Minister Hassan Diab delivered an address to the nation that left little doubt that the political establishment intends to dig in. He offered early elections and said he needed 2 more months to secure an agreement among the country's political factions. But the protesters said they don't want their politicians to agree on early elections under a decades-old system they blame for the dysfunction that allowed a vast stockpile of explosive material to sit unattended at their port for more than 6 years, only to explode on Tuesday with such power that it was felt more than 120 miles away in Cyprus. The cry from the streets is for the politicians to stand down and open the way for a new order in Lebanon. There shall be sedition among men. Resign or hang, said the banners advertising the demonstration, making it clear that the demand is for the politicians to go, not to agree. That's it with this article. So with this video, I hope you sincere Akim were edified. Just keep strong and keep pushing this word. We're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathens, chiefly Esau, Edom. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.